to your point. Why
I
agree with you.
About we are going live. We are going live. We are going live. Sorry.
I just wanted to say that I mean, it's a very valid perspective. But you know, when their billionaires come to invest, they don't come with AK-47. So if the other
that's the law enforcement, that's the law enforcement part of it. So, of course.
So anybody would think if you come with AK-47, then it means you are coming with some element of force, and then that will get people to panic and to
definitely
appeal to your attention.
Definitely.
But you know, that would just be my addition to it.
I agree completely. I agree.
So, how long do we have to wait for others to join us, or should we just
go? We should go down.
I think we should just get started. Yeah.
Yinka, you are the host now, so take it away.
Well, we welcome our able presenter of today, Mr. Kunle Adaramola will be taking us through some legal perspective. Since we'll be talking about SMEs, this is for us to actually learn about all the legal perspectives from okay, what are the things we should be looking for? So over to you, Mr. Adaramola.
All right, thank you very much. I
think I need to mute everybody.
Yes, so
okay.
All right. So I'm trying to share my screen so that I have a very short presentation.
Okay.
Please confirm if you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, all right. Good. So I mean, I gave this. I'm trying to make it very interesting and practical and realistic as well. And so the presentation is basically titled "Law and Business from the Cradle to the Grave." And I think even looking at that topic, we can already determine that from the point of conception of a business idea up to the point of winding down the business, you're supposed to have a partner, if you want to call it that, in law, that should guide and sort of like secure your interests and that of the society, and to ensure some mutually beneficial relationship, I mean, going forward. And so basically, I want to talk about, introduction, origins of business, and the abuses and how the law came to regulate business. As we know, perhaps for students of history, business started from time immemorial, but originally there was nothing like business. It was just God's directive that we should go ahead and till the earth and farm and harvest and kill the animals and eat them, basically, and multiply. That was all God actually expected of man. However, I mean, man, by his typical greedy nature, decides to plant more than he could actually consume, and obviously he had much more to spare. And in having that excess, he thought of other things he needed, for example, clothing, farm implements, and the rest of them. And he felt that, okay, what if somebody started this business and has these materials that I need, and is willing to exchange those materials for my excessive foodstuff? And then that was how trade by barter really started. I mean, you give material for material. And so we had subsistence farmer, having his excess yam or cocoyam, whatever he was selling, exchanging with someone who had other things he needed, like farm implements and land, etc. And that was how even medicine, alcohol, etc. And that was how the idea of business perhaps started. Nobody really knows, but that looks like a logical explanation. Of course, this extended to slave trade, where humans were now being sold and bought like mere commodities. As bad as it was, unfortunately, those are the foundations of business as we know them today. That's capitalism, trying to acquire more and more and more, sometimes to the detriment of society at large and other stakeholders. Now, so there was basically no law involved. I mean, people were just doing what they wanted. I mean, you have something, I have something that you don't have or that you need, and you have something I needed that I don't have, and then we exchanged, and we went our separate ways. So basically, a handshake back then was just enough, just handshakes, and everybody was happy. So there were gentlemen's agreements here and there. Of course, over the centuries, we had merchants that decided that, look, the trading we are doing in this our local environment is not going to be enough. Let us look over the seas, and that's why I decided building ships and stuff and trying to explore. So basically, the discovery of the world was not, as we all know, it wasn't because they were interested in finding new lands, in quotes. It was to find new trading partners. Like they were going to Asia because of their silk and their spices, and I mean, other parts of the world, the Arabs, for example, they were trading in all sorts of things, gold, beads, stuff that they didn't have in their own territories. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the law again was not so much interested in what they were doing. There were no laws regulating. What they had were customs. They had customs in place. They had systems, and they were not written. They were just understood by participants in that area. So the merchants, for example, had their understanding on how to buy and sell at what rate, and who could form any merchant endeavor, for example. And so we had guys coming together as partners and building ships and sailing across different parts of the world and bringing back interesting stuff which they could sell right there at the ports, including slaves. From that was when they started bringing in all this. When that's basically how this transatlantic thing started, slave trade started across Europe and the Americas. And now, eventually, the tradition grew to the point where these merchants became very important, wealthy members of society, and obviously the empires had to recognize them. The British Empire, the French, the Portuguese, etc. The queens and the kings had to acknowledge that these guys are really the ones making things happen. And so, just like we have in Nigeria, where Dangote is probably recognized by every political party as someone they need to be friends with, or how the Jeff Bezos of this world and Bill Gates are reckoned with by the American government in any policy they formulate. The same way, those guys, these merchants became so big that the royal system then had to acknowledge, the monarchies had to acknowledge, and even give them soldiers. They were actually equipping them even with state resources to go out and bring more things. And that's how we have companies like the Royal Niger Company that was chartered. That's where the word charter started coming from. So the queen and the kings, the queens and the kings were, issuing out charters that's royal, under royal seal, authorizing a few people to carry out business across the Atlantic, and they were, just shipping out and doing stuff and bringing revenue back to the British Empire, as in our own case. And so, like I mentioned, the Royal Niger Company, which owned Nigeria, because Nigeria was basically just an asset of the Royal Niger Company, is one of those kind of businesses. So again, Nigeria is historically sort of like a venture by some guys, the shareholders of the Royal Niger Company. They just came together and felt like, guys, this is an area, let us earmark this area and say this is where our own businesses will be carried out. And if you look at that history, you discover how they established all those companies that were trading in the north and the south, through the River Niger, River Benue, those things, the UACs of this world. That's how they all started. That's the United Africa Company. that gave birth to companies that we now have all over the place today. Some of them still survived to today, including Nigerian breweries and co. Now, the problem was that even though everything seemed okay for as many as were genuinely chartered, these businesses, these merchants, there were so many fake enterprises out there. Just like this is today, where you have people running businesses, they are not registered, they are like fly-by-night kind of businessmen. You don't, they have no footprint basically. They just come in and go. They collect people's money and say they will double it for you. I'm not sure how many of you fell victim to the Specto and Seftex of this world. Do you remember? Hello?
Yeah, a few of us actually.
Exactly. So I mean, those were some very rough years, and they are still out there today. You know, all these companies that they come out and give you the impression that they will give you some unbelievable returns on investment. And so back then as well, we had merchants and businesses that were being carried out that way. They were not chartered by the royal system. They were just basically, they had fake. In fact, they had fake charters. So they will put it at the doorstep and say, "Come and invest. Put XYZ amount of pounds sterling, and we'll go out there. We'll bring in stuff, and we promise you, by the time we bring in all the sleeves and all the items, your investment will multiply. But you are the one sponsoring this voyage to say Cape Coast or Cape of Good Hope or Gold Coast, bars as they were known back then. So people were putting money in those ventures, and it became a free for all. So I'm giving you this background so that we know how the law came into to start regulating things, because the abuse got to a point where the courts were now inundated with all sorts of claims. If some of you remember Solomon and Solomon, it's a very popular case where a man, he just set up a business with himself, his wife, and his children, and collected loans, and suddenly now decided to chicken out of the business, leaving the creditors out there hanging. And the question was whether the man Solomon himself rather was an entity that could be sued for the business, because he set up a business and said the business was separate from himself. So we're going to talk about that. That is issue of legal personality. And so there were various court issues that came about, issues of fraud, issues of misrepresentation, etc. And people were complaining. And so the law had to come in. So how did the law come in? The Parliament, obviously, that's the British House of Lords, that's the judicial arm, and then British Parliament, obviously, were mandated to look into ways of, bringing some uniformity into mercantile law as it was then, or customs or traditions that were not written. The people were just doing what they wanted and relying on each other's understanding. But it became a point where people had to start writing things down that, okay, come, I cannot just rely on your handshake. We have to start signing contracts now. We have to have like an understanding of what we are going into. We have to know the liabilities that might entail. We have to understand, that we are accountable and responsible to each other, etc. So the Parliament had to pass several laws, to ensure that businesses were properly regulated. So, so basically the law came in to ensure some transparency in business, fairness in business, accountability in business, responsibility and probity, honesty, etc. So that there will be a level playing field for everybody. So nobody can just come, wake up and defraud other innocent investors. In Nigeria, of course, there were so many laws from the UK, Nigeria being, that's from England, Nigeria being a colony, we inherited a lot of these laws. But today, several years after, we have our own CAMA 1990, which was just like a carbon copy of the English Companies Act. Now, the joke of it is that the British, as usual, they have moved several steps ahead, trying to modify their company's law up to date, while Nigeria is still operating, what they had left. They had amended their own like 10 times, after ours. but they are still back there. I mean, we are still back here, but just recently, however, the National Assembly has approved the KAMA amendment. It has repealed it and reenacted it. And so we'll be saying in future, very soon, in fact, once the president assents to it, that law will radicalize the way companies are established and regulated in Nigeria going forward. So that is that for by way of introduction. Now I have sort of like broken down some, heads for this discussion so that we don't go into too many details, or it's a bit complicated, but just keeping it simple. We see law as a business enabler now. I mean, like I said, the idea was people were doing what they wanted. There were no written regulations or laws or guidelines, helping businesses to invest and to take decisions in a transparent and stakeholder-friendly way. But what the law has then done is to kind of like, the law is like the equalizer in the sense that it has made everything plain and simple, because everybody now has access. Everybody has access to information on what to do. Could you mute the people speaking so that I can't hear? Okay, good. Thank you very much. So we have, like I said, we have our KAMA, and that's the Companies and Allied Matters Act 1990. It's part of the volume of Laws of Nigeria 2004. And under that law or Act of National Assembly, it was actually a decree, because remember, 1990, we were under a military dictatorship, but it has now been made into an act. Under that act, we have various, forms of businesses that can be established in Nigeria. For most micro, small, and medium enterprises, I imagine I'm addressing a lot of businessmen in that area. There's some noise in the background still, sorry. Thank you. So for most MSMEs, the preferred option for starters will be to register a business name. So those are the sole traders, people that are just entrepreneurs, the fashion designers, the artists, the ICT programmers, etc. That just do stuff under your own roof, nothing elaborate, just you and your laptop. Doing business, a small, engineer here and there, stuff that's, catering, what other things do we do? Makeup artists, stuff that we can really that we can basically use our own hands to do without any form of government intervention or registration required. Just basically starting with your friends and then starting with your family, patronizing you, and then going bigger as you may want. We all know of Tara Fela-Durotoye. We're actually classmates in LASU. She read law, and I'm sure she's now known more for her makeup business now than for law. So she started back then, and we were looking at her like, are you serious at all? You are doing makeup, and look at her today. She's bigger than a lot of us. So, MSMEs are, they're the future of any serious country. Should encourage MSMEs and in fact, put in place, things, enabling, laws to support such initiatives and entrepreneurship. So, in Nigeria, under the law, the business name registration is just what it is. It is just a business name you are registering. You don't have a separate legal personality. I will explain to you the implication of that, because it's very, very dire for a lot of reasons. So even though it's good to start by registering a business name is a nickname. Basically, you are registering a nickname to do your business. So you have there are so many examples in my head. I just pick one. So you have maybe Kunle Adaramola and Co, or Kunle Adaramola and Sons, or Kunle Adaramola Enterprises, or Kunle Adaramola Ventures, or Kunle Adaramola. If you notice, I'm not putting limited behind everything I'm saying. I'm just using all those fancy names and Sons, Ventures, Enterprises, Venture. What do you call it now? What other ones do we have these days? We have all sorts of funny names that go around. So when you use your name or a combination of names, and then you put something else behind it, like and Sons, and Co, Enterprises, Ventures, Investments, all those funny nomenclatures, you have effectively created an artificial name. And that is all you are doing. You are not thereby creating an artificial entity. So for business name owners, and that's why it's very cheap. Even you can register a business name right from from on your laptop. You don't need a lawyer to register a business name. Just fill a form, attach your passport photograph, and you pay the fees, and you're good to go. I think it's about, they brought the money from 10,000 to maybe 5,000 recently, just to encourage the entrepreneurs, But as I said, it is just a way to start. It is a way to start, how do I put it now? It's a way to start, an enterprise, but it does not, it should not be your end game, because you're supposed to grow out of it. So like, if you know the history of Facebook and all these Google guys and stuff, they started in a garage somewhere in a small, even Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and also, they started in a small part of their parents' houses. And now, today they have this Silicon Valley where, you have thousands of millions of hectares of land. So that is the idea. You're supposed to grow out of that comfort zone. And there is a legal advantage for doing that as well. So, for example, a business name owner, as I said, is just registering a nickname to carry on business. So if you are doing a contract, for example, I would write your contract as, say, Kunle Ogidi trading as Ogidism Ventures or Ogidism and Sons. It is still Kunle Ogidi. It is not separate from the business. The implication is that that business is tied to Kunle's life, and may he live long, Kunle's death. That's the implication. So just like, say, assuming MK Abiola, for example, just had MK Abiola and Sons, for example, that means he registered a business name. The moment MKO died, that business died with him, end of story. That is one major disadvantage of registering a business name. If it was MKO Abiola Limited or and Sons Limited or Ventures Limited or Enterprises Limited, he has gotten himself what God does not give mankind, which is everlasting life, unless after in the afterlife, which is what Christ promised all of us. But once you make your company limited liability company, you have given it perpetual succession, that means it is going to be around in perpetuity. That means for generation to generation to generation, it will continue being in existence. If all the directors and shareholders are in a plane and the plane crashes inside the Atlantic, the company survives. That is the implication of having the next step of what I'm going to talk about, which is to incorporate a business. So as I said, while you may start your business having a business name, a fancy name, because you are still starting small, that should not be your end game, because if you really want to have something that will stand the test of time, there are so many other advantages I'm going to go into, but the major advantage is perpetual succession. You cannot outlive your business. That is what business name does to you. Sorry, any questions so far?
We were
Are
going
we
to
on track?
questions at the end of your presentation.
Okay, good. Or you could type it on the
chat.
comment section, exactly, the chat section. Okay, good. And so that takes us to the next level of the slide, and that's business incorporation and legal personality, which is for me the best of the best you can have as a business person. So this requires, under the Nigerian law anyway, what we have inherited, luckily, from our colonial masters is the ability to do what the thing that only God can do, basically. The law has enabled us to do it, which is to create a human being. Not human in the sense of humanity, but in the sense of artificial human being. So when you talk about artificial intelligence and artificial stuff as if it's a new thing. It is actually not new. Companies have always been artificial intelligence in the sense that they are treated or they are considered by law to be human beings in the sense that they can die, they can live, they can give birth, and I'll break it down for you in how they do all these things. They can, they can acquire property like me and you. We go to the market and buy. A company can also do that. I'm sure you know that already. A company can do everything you can do, and so what we have effectively done by what the law has enabled us to do effectively is to mimic God, by creating a platform for doing business separate and distinct from ourselves that can even outlive us. So I'll give you an example. So we have say you want to create a business, and you and your wife, or you and your husband and your kids, and you just go to Corporate Affairs Commission and say, okay, I want to start up this business, and the object of the business will be to set up an eatery, in Lagos or somewhere, and you tell them you have shared capital of say 1 million naira, which is usually the average people use these days. That 1 million, what that means is that is your share capital. That is the amount you are valued, is a nominal valuation of that business. The business is usually bigger than that, obviously. By the time you add all your 10 kobo together, it will obviously be much more, than that. But until you do a proper valuation, that is the nominal share capital you're attaching to your company. It could be more than that, depending on how you're able to assess the value of the business. And then you share it 50-50 or 20-20 among yourselves. What you are saying in essence is that in the event that this business is able to carry on business, this company is able to carry on business worth this amount. So this company can take orders of, say, 1,000 meals to be supplied to a hospital. And the value of the meal is like, say 500,000. Meanwhile, you have a 1 million share capital. What you're saying is that this business is able to do business up to 1 million, naira. But we are doing business right now of 500,000 naira. So we take these orders, we are able to supply these goods. Now, this is where the catch actually occurs. So you are putting in some amount into the business, all of you. The law requires that at the point of setting up that business, you must bring in not less than 25%, right? Must be allotted. So we are saying that if, for example, the hospital we are supposed to supply food to, we disappoint that hospital, for example, and we don't supply the food, the hospital can claim back its money by suing the shareholders who own this portion of the 1 million. So they'll be forced to cough out the portion they have assumed. So when you say I'm a shareholder in a company, you need to be very, very careful about what you are saying, because you are not just shareholder for the purpose of having shares. You are also a shareholder for the purpose of coughing out money when, like the Americans will say, the shit hits the fan. So it's not just about you getting dividends. Of course, it's important for you to know your shareholding because of your dividends. If it's paid up, in fact, that means most shares are already paid up. Most Nigerians, for example, in all these PLCs, you have already paid up your shares up front. You have already given them your money, the monetary value of the shares. You have already paid it into the company when you subscribed, right? So if anything happens, you are perhaps safe. But for those that are unpaid, if anything happens to that company, you will be called upon. That's your liability will be limited to the amount of shares you have acquired. So if you acquire 75% and you're saying, yes, I'm majority shareholder, and you're wearing agbada, yes, when the dividend is being shared, you get the chunk of it. But when the cane is also being shared, you chop the bulk of the cane, which is that you have to cough out 75% of what you have assumed as in order to bring the company back on track or to pay the company's debts. All right. So now in Nigeria, we can have a private company or a public company. They both have different parameters of entry. But usually a public company, like the Nigerian breweries, UACs, what do you call them? Unilever, Cadbury, International Breweries, all the big companies, MTN recently, Dangote, etc. They are all public liability companies. What that means is that they have sold their shares to millions of people out there. The law particularly takes interest in them for that very reason. The fact that you have opened up your business to the whole world to buy into, people that have saved up their pensions, people that have saved up their life savings, people that are just, that have excess that are trying to invest to multiply their income. You are using their money to do business. That's what it means. And the government will not let you rest. So there are so many, regulations and guidelines that you have to adhere with. There are so many returns you have to file. Government is really interested in how you are running your show. That is corporate governance. Government is interested in, the number of directors you have on your board, the non-executives and the executives and the independent non-executives, etc. So these are details that you don't need as a medium, and small scale business. It is a public business, a public, they call them public interest entities, and the government is particularly interested in regulating them for obvious reasons. Because if they go down, remember the Enrons of this world, remember the Parmalats of this world. When they went down, people were actually committing suicide, because of those corporate failings, because the directors were basically just, embezzling the funds and hiding the information in their financial statements. So even when you look at these financial statements, it is so convoluted, so confusing, you don't even understand what they are saying. At the end of the day, they just say that the company is healthy and everything is fine. Meanwhile, the company is indebted by millions, to different, stakeholders and banks and etc. So the truth of the matter is that once you open up your business to the public to invest, you are under constant microscope, regulatory microscope. So that is not our interest here. When we get to that point, we will cross the bridge of, obviously, like the Dangotes of this world. So we are going to stick with the private, limited liability company. By the way, we have companies that are unlimited as well, like Mobile. What that means is that if you're a Mobile shareholder, the company itself has unlimited liability. What that means is that Mobile can go into any business venture, right? Run into trillions of dollars, whatever that means. And you are sure that the shareholders are going to pay you back. That's what they are saying. We have unlimited liability. There is also companies limited by guarantee, which is that they are usually charities and not-for-profit entities. So you are not asked to bring money from the beginning, but you are saying that by joining this company, I am guaranteeing that if anything happens in future, I will be, any amount they say I should pay, I will pay. So that's your limit. That means your liability is limited by the amount of guarantee that you are giving. So that one is, okay, so I'm guaranteeing that if this company goes down, or is about to go down, I can be forced to pay up to, say, 5 million or 10 million, as the case may be. So you're not required to put that money down now, but if it happens, then I have to do that. But like I said, anybody graduating from business name to incorporation should obviously start with being a limited liability company. And one of the advantages of incorporation is that you are a legal person, separate and distinct from your business. What that means is, God forbid, even if you are broke, if your company is rich, you cannot say you are rich. You are separate and distinct from that company. The same way, if you are rich and your company is broke, is owing companies, is owing people, suppliers, and etc., or employees, your company is owing them salaries. Those employees cannot sue you because you are separate from the company. You understand? That's just the beauty of limited liability, and that's what Salomon resolved. I would like you to read up. Just read it. It's a very interesting story. Just read up the short story of Salomon, and it was like a scam. It's like you are saying that I am the owner of this company, and yet if things go wrong, you cannot hold me responsible. You can only hold the company responsible. Where is the company? The company is Lagbaja Nigeria Limited. Who is Lagbaja Nigeria Limited? Where can I find it? You say registered address. You go to the registered address using something bus stop, and you are looking at the company. You're like, okay, the company is not a human being. I cannot flog it. I cannot shoot it. I cannot imprison it. You know, it's very frustrating, but that is what the law has come to do, to separate, so that it sort of like encourages business as well, so that people can easily carry out business that outlive them. So one of the advantages, as I said, of setting up a limited liability company is that you have a legal person, separate and distinct from yourself. You have perpetual succession. It outlives you. If anybody dies, the board of directors, all of them, they die, the company goes on. It has a common seal, meaning that it can even pretend to be a human being, because what's actually some physical activities of a human being includes signing a contract, right? Like your letter of employment or contract letter, etc. You're able to sign, you're able to subscribe to packages and stuff and sign. In the company sense, a common seal is what actually makes it. The company is able to pretend as if it's a human being by getting its director or secretary to affix a common seal onto its contracts. So if you if you're doing business, for example, and you're engaging into a buy and sell deal with a company, maybe company A or company B, you have to look out for the fact that did the company really sign this contract? How do you know that? You have to check the signature page and see that it has actually affixed its common seal. And then, of course, power to sue and sue in its own name. What that means is that if you are the MD or director or owner of, say, Tantalizers Nigeria Limited, that's the eatery, right? And when somebody comes to your eatery and eats and does not pay, or somebody comes to your eatery and finds, God forbid, finds a hair strand in the food, in short, the food is contaminated, you are not bound to respond to any claim as the owner of that business. It is the business that will be sued, because you are what? Separate and distinct from that business. If in the process the business is told to go and pay 1 million naira as damages, it is not from your personal account that money will come out from. It will be from the business. No matter how rich you are, or no matter how broke you are, it is the company's account that money has to come out from. Even though you are the owner of the company, it's like diplomatic immunity of some sort. You're actually shielded from a lot of nonsense. There are exceptions to this, by the way. I mean, obviously there are exceptions to every rule, which is to protect innocent people. But the bottom line is that you are safe and secure, not for you to go and be perpetrating fraud, obviously, but obviously to ensure that you are able to focus on the business and keep the business afloat. And then obviously you can hold land. Land is a very sensitive subject. People always say, back in the day, in the old English law, for example, if you are not of capacity, if you are not, for example, if there's an age where you can start holding land, for example, even as a human being. But as a company, once you are incorporated, you can hold land, and you can sell land, you can build on land, you can do anything you want on land, you can charge it for loan, you can mortgage it for loan, etc. And so the company, again, even though you are the owner of the company, it is the company that is able to do all these things. And if anything happens in future, even though you are benefiting from it when things are good, when things go bad, you are still, again, safe and secure from such flags. Obviously, we are talking about property now, protection and ownership of business property. One very key property that a lot of people take for granted is what we call intellectual property, which is your trademarks and your ideas, your copyrights, your scripts. You design a cake and you think it's a signature, recipe. You want to protect it. You want to you protect. You create a brand or a nickname, fancy name, like. Let me think of one. Maybe even Apple, for example. When you talk about Apple is obviously a fruit, but Apple has also gotten another, idea now that as a software, sort of hardware equipment from the company Apple Inc. So those ideas are worthy of protection, and the law helps you to protect them. Now, as I said, if you have a company, if you create an idea or an intellectual property, the trademark or design or anything, you want to put that intellectual property in the name of the company. Remember, because once you die, the idea also dies with you, and you don't want to die with an idea as being an owner of the idea, because to transfer it will be difficult. You can only do it by way of your will, and I don't know how many of us have a will yet. People are also always scared of making a will. Then you have letter of administration, which will cost your estate another time, how many months to obtain, and cost, of course, to also obtain. So it is easy for you to vest your assets in the name of your company, because the company outlives you. It will be there for generations. So indeed, if someone like Femi Otedola, I'm sure he would, all this is oil assets. You probably have some of them, have a lot of his assets in the names of those companies for obvious reasons. The other advantage is that if you are going to access a facility from a bank, the bank know that your lifespan is not forever. But if you put the assets in the name of a company, the bank is also comfortable that that company is going to be there, at least, even if anything happens to you, the company will still be there holding the assets. So all these things they're a bit abstract in the sense that, what are we talking about? Is it not human beings that are in the company that are doing all these things? But the law does not look at those human beings. The law looks at, in fact, under Nigerian laws, and I'm sure in other countries as well, a company, even though a company cannot go to jail for committing a criminal offense, a company can be convicted. And what that means is that it can be struck off the rule of companies in Abuja, that's a Corporate Affairs Commission, it can be struck off. Or the directors and officers of that company can be arrested or jailed on behalf of the company, which is the exception I was trying to talk about, the lifting the veil. There's a lifting the veil concept whereby the law will look behind the veil of incorporation, which gives a company what we call the legal personality. So the law wants to see, who are the people behind this company? This company we are saying is immune and it can't be touched or something. Who are the real people behind it? And in those few instances, the company will look behind who is running the company. And that's why we have the Orji Kalu case, for example, the former governor of Abia State, who was convicted because he was carrying out some shady deals using his company. I think it's Soft or something like that, one funny company. And for all intents and purposes, if you look at the documents, all the transaction documents, you are seeing the name of the company. So it is not Orji Kalu that committed the offense, in quotes. But when it was time to convict or to pass judgment, the court had to look behind who was in charge, and that was when they found Orji Kalu's name as director, as chairman, etc. And then of course, obviously, he was convicted. Now the conviction has been thrown out now, and he's going to start his trial afresh. But these are the advantages of having a limited liability company. Also, like I said, for the banks, if you're not a limited liability company, they probably don't want to deal with you, for a lot of reasons, many of which I've already mentioned. Now, in terms of compliance, business compliance, limited liability also comes with it, of course, the compliance burden. Not as much as public companies that I mentioned earlier, because you are not bringing in shares from the whole world. It is just you and your wife, or you and your kids, or you and your friends. But you still have to file, unlike a business name where you're filing personal income tax, which is because, remember, business name is just you using a fancy name to do business. For a limited liability company, you are liable to pay company's income tax. And it is obviously higher than, if it's a small company, it's still, even if it's a small company, it's still higher than personal income tax, obviously. So, but it's ideal because people will see you as a serious businessman or woman. If you go to a bank and you show them that I have a company and the company is tax compliant, we file our annual returns at CAC. Annual returns meaning that you are just telling the Corporate Affairs Commission that we are still around, we are still doing business. Even if we are not doing business, we are still around, and we are still a going concern. We are not dead, obviously, because we have not been wound up, and we are not, even if I as the owner, if I die, the company is still in existence. So how do you prove that the company is still in existence? You are showing CAC that you are filing your tax, you are publishing your or you are giving him a copy of your financial statement or statement of affairs. Statement of affairs meaning that, well, I've not done any business, nobody has patronized me, but this is my capital, it's still in place, my share capital is still in place, I'm still open for business, nothing has happened to me, I'm not owing anybody. Even if I'm owing anybody, I can pay. It is still within my payment range. Then CAC will say, okay, yes, well done, you are still alive, you are not dead yet. So basically, I mean, it is compliance relates to letting government know, letting the person that gave you the paper know that you are still around, you have not gone under. Then back to transmission of business, I had mentioned earlier that the beauty of limited liability company is that it is in perpetual succession. So if you want your company to be around forever, literally, all you have to do is to bring in people as shareholders, as directors, and there'll be no need for you to do any will or any letter of administration, because remember, the company is now a separate entity from yourself. The downside for business name is exactly the opposite, which is that if you just have a business name in place, you cannot transmit that business to your child, so or your wife or your brother or anybody, like, for that matter. So I'll give you an example. When I was in Nigerian Breweries, I was legal manager in Nigerian Breweries. We had, the company has all these big distributors that sell the beer, wholesale and all that, and all these Eastern brothers, So all they did was say Chukudi something and Sons, and they were doing businesses worth hundreds of millions of naira. I mean, they were big, So I mean, really, really big, and so. But that was way back when Nigerian Breweries started. And so they were with the company historically for years, growing with the company, and their businesses were growing. And then obviously they grew old at themselves. The company is almost 80 years old now. So you can imagine anybody doing business with Nigerian Breweries like way back must also either be dead or very old. But guess what has happened? A lot of them probably just fell ill or died suddenly. And they were having credits in the company's account running to millions of naira. And the issue will come to my table like, Kunle advised us, this man is dead. He's been our biggest distributor. His wife wants to carry on with his business, or his child, his firstborn, Igbo culture now, his firstborn wants to carry on with the business. Can we continue supplying? And I'll look at the documents and say, okay, where are his documents of incorporation? They say that he didn't incorporate the company. It was Chukudi and Sons, or Chukudi Enterprises. And I'll be like, sorry, the business is dead with the man, as in. So the question will be like, no, we can't have that too. This man is one of our biggest customers. Well, he's dead now, so you can't trade with a dead man. And he didn't bother registering a company as big as it was. So even as an entity, I mean, the advice I give to my clients now, even where I am now, is that, look, you are better off dealing with limited liability companies, because you can carry on the business even when the owner is dead. So what usually then happens is they will now go and hire a lawyer to register a company, and then they will now have to take out letter of administration, or if the man wrote a will and said he's willing his company to his firstborn son or his wife, they will have to go to court to prove it. And then family issues will now start, all sorts of crises. Meanwhile, if he had a company and he made his wife and his son shareholders or directors, the fact that he died, even if he died 10 times, nobody will even notice. Even Nigerian Breweries wouldn't have known the man had died, because remember, it will be the paper, the letterhead of the company, the common seal of the company, and every other thing, even if it's a briefcase company, that the company will be seeing, that Nigerian Breweries will be seeing. They wouldn't have been, the question of whether the man is alive or dead wouldn't even have arisen, because remember, the only place where that question may have arisen is probably in the bank for maybe signatory to the bank account of the company. But remember, because it's a company, all they would have had to do was just to call a annual general meeting or a board meeting and write a written resolution appointing somebody else as signatory to the company's accounts, and the bank would have honored that. So you don't need to go and start looking through anybody's drawers for a will or anything. Once a businessman dies, his business should continue. And that's how you have, Steve Jobs' Apple growing in leaps and bounds long after he died of cancer. Nobody was asking, okay, Steve is dead, yeah, let Apple also die. No, Apple is going to be here forever. Apart from the fact that it's not a public company, it's going to be there forever unless the shareholders decide to wind it up. So that's very important for transmission of business. So business names are not transmittable. They are not transferable. Once the owner dies, that is the end of it. So as I said, for anybody doing any business, no matter the kind of business you are doing, if you register a business name, that should only be an entry point move. You should, as soon as possible, incorporate a company so that all the assets of that business, all the transactions of that business, all the liabilities of that business, of course, will be separate and distinct from you and will enjoy perpetual succession. All right. Now, like I said, cradle to the grave. The law enables you to establish your business. It also enables you to kill your business if you want to kill it. It also enables you to transfer the business itself to another business. So that's why you have all these acquisitions, mergers, and takeovers, etc. But those are technical areas, and they are again not for SMEs. So they are for big companies. But indeed, small businesses can come together. By the way, they can merge and to become a bigger business. You can say, okay, you are into poultry and poultry farming business, small scale. I'm into catering business, small scale too. You can come together and partner to become a bigger company whereby all the raw materials from the poultry business can be shipped into the catering business and everybody's happy, or maybe agro-allied business. So indeed, at that level, you could have a sort of marriage. So again, that's further talks about law being a business enabler, meaning that it also allows you to get married to each other. And then it allows you to divorce each other as well, because you can divest from businesses as well. So somebody who is a shareholder in your company can say, look, I'm no longer interested in this business. Pardon me, that money that I put in the business, can I buy it back? Can you buy it back? So you're actually buying back your shares. You're giving him the money based on the value of the business at that point of exit. Because obviously, if he invested at 500 naira when he invested, maybe after maybe 5-7 years, he decides to come out. The money will obviously have doubled, or at least appreciated, because the business also will have grown. So you are buying out of that business, or you say you want to wind up the business. Now, winding up can be voluntary and obviously or compulsory, or depending on what you want to do. If, for example, the business is owing banks money or owing creditors, we call them banks, but creditors generally could be any of your suppliers, and you are not able to pay your debts, they can actually move for your company to be wound up. Once they wind up your company, they will sell off the assets and distribute it. If you no reach, they will call those of you that have said you are shareholders that were sharing the money when things were good. You will now have to come and cough back the money you have been sharing, all right, to pay back the debts. So that is one way the company can go down. Voluntarily, the shareholders can just say, well, I think we have achieved the purpose of this business. We're set up to do this and do that. And then now, for example, the Gokada guy, maybe he set up Gokada to basically to run Okada business in Lagos. And then suddenly, by operation of law, the Lagos State government said no more Okada, for example. And then they just found out, okay, there's no point carrying on with this business anymore. And then they wind down, they can come together and say, guys, let us just wind up this business. So indeed, again, you do a meeting, you pass the resolution to wind up, and you file at CAC. Once you do that, the CAC might tell you to go and advertise in the papers that you intend to wind up. So that if anybody that you are owing, if you think you want to just disappear into thin air, you can't do that. So the CAC will require you to put it in the papers that if there's anybody that has any reservations about your move to wind down your business, they should raise any objection within a set period of time. If after that period of time there is no opposition, 1 or 2 steps later, the CAC would cancel your name from the register of companies, and then you will have to return your original certificate of incorporation, and the company is considered dead. So that is the story for from the cradle to the grave, law and business. Any questions?
I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody so we can ask questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this insightful presentation. So we all learned a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yemi had a hand up. I can't find her anymore. I think she left. All right.
Any questions?
Everyone. So I think David Aloe.
Any questions or comments? There could be comments. I mean, not necessarily questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Very, very informative and interesting, actually. My question is that I'm sorry I joined late, but I think I heard you said even though you have an LLC, does not how do you put it? Does not let me go with the example you used. That somebody in Nigeria, the case went to court, and then they had to look at the people who are actually running
behind the show.
Behind the show.
Exactly.
And then,
yeah.
So my point is, I mean, having an LLC, isn't that one of the purposes to shield you from stuff like that?
Kind of, yes.
Yeah, or it's just a Nigerian factor that we see displayed here, or is that how it normally happens? So that's my question.
Good question. Yeah, as I said, if the law is like how do I put it now? I'm sure a lot of us here are Yorubas. When they say "Oyinbo she pencil she riza," so okay. It's a case of, okay, we have shielded you from this on the belief that you are doing business in a transparent and honest manner. If you are now using this platform to perpetrate fraud or corruption or money laundering, or remember terrorism. Remember under the American system, for example, after 9/11, a lot of these laws were reviewed like, we can't be allowing these Bin Laden guys to be laundering money to buy arms and ammunition and funding terrorist attacks using this same platform we created to encourage good business. Okay. So those exceptions were created in the event that people, so of course, for me to say I want to lift your shield, I must file an application in court, and I must give probable cause that I believe that this company is being used to carry out, nefarious activities. And then on evidence, the court can decide that, okay, so let us see who are the, so for example, who can I find now? Let's say this Iranian guys, they float a company, and the company is carrying a fancy name, right? And then you discover that each time there is some activity relating to violence and stuff, or fraud or money laundering, you find that company's name reoccurring. And you'll be like, wait a minute, who are the guys behind this company? Because if we keep attacking this company, we will not be able to address the real issue. And so in those situations, the court will grant an order lifting the veil. So it is on very rare occasions that the court actually gives, and it's a global thing. It's not even a Nigerian thing. You can all, just for your own, informal knowledge, just type in lifting the veil, and you see all sorts of scenarios where it has been done in the past, where the law is interested in who are the guys behind the scenes, who are the guys controlling the puppet, so to speak, so that justice can be done. Because if you attack the company and you wind down the company, the guys behind it are still on the streets escaping, So it's a global concept. In fact, more emphasized after 9/11. But even before 9/11, it was in the common law of company, and in the UK, everywhere in the world. Lifting the veil is a very strong exception to in fact, it's the only exception to the legal personality concept.
Okay, I see that Elubeku has a question too. Elubeku, you need to accept your mute. Well, do we have any other question? Let me find out what's going on with Elubeko.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. We can hear you now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can
please
hear
go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, fine. Thank you for the presentation. And I so much appreciate the exposure on the fact that when we are dealing with a business name, that's a new knowledge for me anyway. So I want to know what's my safe haven when I deal with a business name and the business owner is no more and is exposed to me.
Fantastic question. Fantastic question. Is a tough one. So what I have I mean it's a very tough question in the sense that it's a good question, it's a tough question as well. So what I've advised my clients to do is to, as much as possible, not deal with business names. That's the truth. They are just, because the guy might just have a stroke and drop dead, and that is, if you have given him money, you're on your own. You can't hold the dead body. You are just left with nothing. In fact, dealing with business name is like dealing with your friend, dealing with somebody that you can't hold down. You know, person can just disappear into thin air, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that kind of trade, as soon as possible, you need to tidy up and, you know, set up higher standards of business for yourself. That, look, I'm not going to be dealing with anybody that is not a business name. But from the legal perspective, what safeguards can you give yourself? Okay, so to be honest, I have not thought of that because I'm looking at it like it's a very good question. I don't know, because you can't stop him from falling sick. In this COVID era, for example, somebody who you are doing business with just catches COVID-19 and suddenly all your money is going down the drain. Will you go to the hospital to force him to cough it out? Meanwhile, if it was a company, you wouldn't even bother yourself. You might as well, God forbid, you might as well just die. You are okay because it's a company. You can always sue his company. You can always claim it from his company. So it's a very tough, the idea is that, as I said, most business names should not just feel comfortable being business names. There will come a time when banks will not even want to deal with you. Nobody will want to give you any loan because they know that their loan is based on your lifetime. It's not something they can chase you once you kaput. So it's not an ideal thing. But based on your question, I'll do a research on your question and come back to you through Kunle Ogidi, because you have asked a very sensitive question. Assuming you're already in business with a business name, how do you safeguard yourself? That's a very key question. And I can't think of any answer to that. That's the truth.
Okay. Further to that, can a limited liability company have a business name as subsidiary? Is it allowed?
No, as I said, another good question. Who is this gentleman? You're asking some very deep questions. Okay, so I'll just tell you straight up that you can't. A limited liability company cannot set up a business name. What limited liability companies do is to create a subsidiary and a brand. So let me put it this way. How do I put it now? So you have I'm looking for an idea. So you have, I think, MultiChoice. You have MultiChoice Nigeria, right? Which is a company. And then you have DSTV, which is a brand. You have GoTV, which is a brand. Do you understand? So that's what they do. They create brands under which they can carry out different services. You don't have to create, most of companies don't create business names. They create brands under which they register those brands, and then they like, for example, you have I'm looking for service sector now, because the goods sector is very straightforward. So your brands are usually how you carry out your various operations. So you have Nestle. Nestle has Maggi. They have Choco Milo, I think. They have Milo. They have Golden Morn. So they do brands. they carry out various arms of their company through brands. So you have the cereal brand, the cereal segment, you have the seasoning segment, you have the beverage segment. So they don't, by law, a limited liability company cannot set up a business name, because remember, a business name is just a nickname that an individual uses to carry out business. So it is your passport photograph they will take to set it up, for example. Even though we have said companies have legal personality, others artificial persons, a company does not have a picture that it will use to apply for business name. So for a company to run parallel businesses, what they do is to set up brands and segments of that company, not necessarily set up. They usually don't have to do that, because even the law will never allow them to do it.
Okay. Tubeku, do you have any other question? I want to move over to Kunle Gidi. He has his hand up. Okay, Kunle, over to you.
Okay. First, thank you very much. The law. I think you've given us a very robust perspective as to doing business. The role the law plays. My question is, for most of us on this platform, your audience, we're small scale business owners, and then it would be nice to know, beyond the perpetuity or succession that a corporate liability, a limited liability companies can have. It would be nice to know if there are other limitations to our businesses in terms of maybe accessibility to some government loans and subventions, or maybe there's a legal barrier or a legal order that can debar us from getting certain benefits from government, whether in the face of financial institutions or in the face of the law, other than what you have earlier said. It would be nice to know. Then the other thing is, as a small business owner that I use a business name, there are too many of me. And I remember you said in your presentation that this is what actually drives most economies. I know that I have 1,001 people like me. Services will be cheaper. If I want to buy anything from them, it probably will be cheaper because their overheads and their tax liabilities are not as much. So it's easier, like you say, it is easier for people like us to relate with one another. So it's almost inevitable that a business name owner would not do business with someone else that is also a business name owner. So I just want to know, are there any risk beyond the fact that the guy can die? And we all know that we are all like that. But are there any other risk other than pay, okay, he can die? So if it's about death, then we can do business with him and then remember him in our morning devotion. So along. You understand? So I just want to know.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, for the first question, it's just a case of how do I put it now? So I'll just illustrate with cars, okay, or with what we are trying to do in Nigeria now, train transport, rail transport. So you want to travel from Kaduna to Port Harcourt, and somebody is offering you all this our own type of rail system versus the fast rail system you have in some parts of Europe. I mean, you would obviously go for the fast rail for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's faster, obviously, and then it's more comfortable. You have beautiful ladies serving you in the train. But in Nigeria, you have people jumping onto the rail line and hanging on the sides, and you will not get to where you're supposed to go. In fact, there's no guarantee that you get to where you're supposed to go. So it's the same thing with jumping into a transaction with a business name. There is no guarantee. In fact, the day you sign that contract, the village people may just decide to visit the guy maybe the day you do the transfer into his account, and then the guy decides to just join his ancestors. That is the end of it. So for government, even for policy makers, the attraction is for companies that are limited by by shares, private companies limited by shares. It shows that you are serious. Remember, you also have a share capital. Business name, you don't need a share capital. You just go and fill form and put passport there and you are good to go. But the yawa will be waiting for you in front, because when people stop wanting to do business with you, then you know that you have to up your game. So as I said, there is really I don't even know why that particular entry point is there in the first instance. I think it's just to encourage small businesses, but nobody wants to remain small forever, right? And so I think the idea is also that you shouldn't waste too much time on that, position. You should try to just look for people, one or two, even your wife or your brother or somebody. And the beauty of it also is that the risk of somebody stealing your business is also not there, because remember, you be the majority shareholder in any event. So if I mean, most people want to do business name also because that kind of thing. I mean, if anything only me know as I start this business, I only me know as I manage. But guess what? Your fear is also taken care of under limited liability, because if you say you own Nikon, you can own 99.9%. That's the irony of it. You can own 99.9% of that business and give the remaining 0. whatever to maybe to somebody, to your friend, So you have nothing to lose at the end of the day still. But the important thing is that when they are selecting, in fact, if I'm going to do a short list of any government, say government wants to give, say CBN creates sort of an agency for, like when this man did People's Bank, IBB, in the days of People's Bank, assuming they want to set up all these microfinance banks, for example, that we have today. If they want to set up, I mean, they want to give out loans to small, small, whatever enterprises. I mean, if I want to do a short list, it won't have business names. I mean, because I feel anybody doing business name is really not serious like that. For example, if you have done business name for say 5 years, 10 years, and you're still business name, like these are our friends that I mentioned in Nigerian breweries from the East that will be doing multi-million naira deals on business name. I mean, that means you are not serious, because it doesn't cost. Remember, the shares you are actually even, the share capital you are using to register a company, you are not even required to pay it now. It is just your own evaluation. Say, okay, this business I want to do, let me attach a value of say 2 million to it. So it is you are not paying that 2 million now. It is when the company is in trouble that you are required to pay that 2 million. And God forbid, the company will never be in trouble. Meanwhile, you are doing your business and you are making profit. So, I mean, on the basis of government, I mean, there is no law really that says government should not accommodate. They may not even tell you, but I can tell you between us that, like I said, I will jump on the fast rail, even though they have other alternatives. But the one that will take me to where I'm going faster is one that I will take. I won't take the one that will stop on the road. So that, which is a business name, business name can stop on the road any moment. You don't even have started the journey to just stop, and then there's when you are stranded. So that's that. I mean, the government will. I mean, even banks. If you have any friends in the banks, when they are telling them to go and chase customers and all that, they will call you. They'll bring you in. They'll bring you in. Yeah, come and set up account. Come and open account. But by the time you start running that account, you discover that so many benefits that should come to you are not coming to you. For example, maybe the amount of loan, the loan barrier for business name is a maximum of 5 million, and the loan barrier for limited liability company is maximum of 10 million. Already you are at a disadvantage, and it is understandable. And back to my friend that was asking about if you're already in a business with a business name, I think you should just limit your liability. I mean, so that if it is money that you cannot let go, don't do business. Don't go into that business. That's just the truth. That is one way to hedge your risk, because there's really no way to gamble unless you are God. You cannot guarantee the person will be around tomorrow.
Barrister Adaramola, we have another question in chat. So it's from Oshun side. They wanted to know if a limited liability company
can acquire businesses that are set up on individual names. No, the truth of the matter is, you acquire, when you say you are acquiring a company, you are not really acquiring a company in that sense. What you're acquiring are the shares of the company. So business names don't have shares. They don't have share capital, nothing to acquire. So again, there is nothing. So what you can do, if you want to acquire in the sense of bringing the person on board into your company, what you do is to allot shares to that business name owner from your company. So for example, Kunle Ogidi Nigeria Limited wants Kunle Adaramola and Sons to be part of his business. He's not going to be acquiring Kunle Adaramola and Sons. He's going to be selling shares to me. So I will have to go and buy shares in his company so that I can be part of his company. Because there is nothing for him to acquire from me. Because me, I don't have shares. I'm just a business name. I'm just using nickname to do business up and down. Like all these guys carrying, like what they call a Chicani shop. All these people they put sewing machine for shoulder up and down. That's what I'm doing. I'm not. It is me. If Okada comes and clears me off the road, that is the end of the business. So that's the truth of the matter. I mean, he can only sell me shares in his company, and then I'll buy shares in his company, and then I become a shareholder. So a limited liability company cannot acquire in that sense a business that are business names. It can only, you can bring the owner of the business name on board to become a shareholder. Just sell him 0.5 shares and he's a shareholder. Yep.
Okay, to encourage more participation, I'm going to stop live stream now. Would that be okay with everyone?
Yes, please.